Hey, good to see everybody. Good to see Mike. And thank you for hosting another great year of HandyCon. And I've been kind of lurking on at this event, and I see a lot of new names in the participants. So that's really good to see. So today, I guess starting with a little bit of a background about myself. I was part of kind of the founding team that launched Handshake in 2020. We started working on this project 2018 or so. But prior to that, I'm doing a lot of things, working in building different projects in the Bitcoin space, starting something around like 2012, 2013 or so. And yeah, we started working on Handshake in 2018. By now, we're in 2025. In my role here is just as a community member, as somebody who's a fan of the project. And as you guys know, we don't have like a foundation or a centralized entity or anything. So just wanted to kind of show up and share a few thoughts. One of those is thanks to the help of Nathan Woodburn, I wanted to kind of give you guys a quick preview of a blog that I've been writing. I've been wanting to write a blog for a long time, but I didn't want to use something like Substack or kind of anything Medium or any of the centralized platforms. And so Nathan Woodburn kind of helped start a blog. You guys can go check it out on ali.g. So the .g is a TLD that I bought pretty early on when it came available, and then the blog's hosted on ali.g. What's kind of unique about the blog is, there's basically 3 sections of it. So there is an ICANN TLD that I bought that associates with it, but I won't unveil it now so that you guys can just kind of check it out on the Handshake domain exclusively, but it will be available to see kind of on the public web or the ICANN web, I guess. And then there's a section of the blog that is just available if you have a Handshake resolver. So you need a Handshake resolver to see some of the content that's on there. And then there's another section. So 1 that's resolvable on ICANN, 2 sections that are resolvable only if you have a Handshake resolver. And then 3, the third section is just kind of more personal stuff. I live off grid and like things that not everyone might be interested in. You can purchase a .g subdomain to be able to see it. But more than just shilling my blog or anything, the idea just generally behind it is just kind of like show how a more kind of decentralized, censorship-resistant blog could be developed and written, as well as kind of showing ways that you can kind of, I guess, gate it through like a subscription method, and similar to kind of like how Substack works, right? So on Substack, there's a public section where anybody can read your blog, and then there's the paid group section. And so we're kind of like mimicking those kinds of ideas on the blog. So yeah, please check it out. And if you want to build a blog, a similar type of blog, we do intend on productizing at some point, but just hit up Nathan Woodburn and he'd be happy to kind of set things up for you guys. So on the blog, there's more information, just random thoughts that I have that are maybe like too long or too weird or different to post on X or something more public. So that's that. ali.g, check it out. And then the other, I guess going on to kind of like the main conversation that I want to talk a little bit about, and please feel free. I'm reading chat right now. So if you have any question, feel free to just type it in chat. And want to make this engaging. I saw Shadow Man posted Kate should use some Handshake, and I think Kate right now is using X and Rumble primarily, but it could be something cool for him to do. So getting to my kind of main conversation, the topic that I had kind of been thinking about, which is ALT, attention liquidity technology. And the order behind that is kind of important. So, I've been kind of thinking what makes a blockchain kind of widely like a new chain or ecosystem widely adopted, right? And when I first started getting into Bitcoin, primarily we got into the space kind of driven by both the technology and the ideology behind it. And I think that's how all of like crypto kind of kicked off, right? Well, like people that got into Bitcoin early, we didn't really anticipate Bitcoin to gain as much value as it had. and just found the technology interesting. It was peer to peer, it was permissionless, it was decentralized, and on the value side of things, if you've ever thought about kind of the problems with central banking and fiat currency, it provided a really cool like digital alternative to it. And initially, a lot of computer scientists and a lot of people just in the tech ecosystem like really adopted and engaged Bitcoin really early on. And so I mean so if you kind of think about like how crypto was adopted, starting with like Bitcoin and perhaps even Ethereum and Cosmos and these types of ecosystems, there was a lot of attention kind of followed technology. So technology came first, attention came afterwards, and eventually liquidity followed. So TAL, like technology, attention, and liquidity. But if you kind of see what's happening in the ecosystem now, as crypto has gotten more and more developed, and it really feels like the attention piece is the piece that you kind of have to capture first, right? So it's like so the topic, so the title of this talk really was about starting with attention and then liquidity and then technology kind of became like a tertiary aspect of needing of technology, like why people start using this stuff as opposed to the other way around. And I think if we still lived in a TAL type of like technology first kind of ecosystem, and if that were all true, I mean, I definitely, like Handshake would be somewhere definitely among the top 10, maybe even the top 5 type cryptocurrency networks out there. But I mean, I think one of the, but in the areas I think the community could try to like work on and try to figure out is kind of reversing that. The technology is really there, and I think attention follows liquidity. And even if you look at the Handshake kind of price chart or options chart or any kind of like metric you want to point at, whether it's name registrations or price or volume on exchanges, I really like the liquidity really followed, and the price appreciation and things like that really followed attention. Right, so there were certain events early on in Handshake, network launch, followed by like Namecheap acquisition of Namebase and things like that, where you really saw liquidity and price and these types of things, adoption really follow, as opposed lately. And so I mean, as I've been kind of thinking about like what could be priorities for Handshake as an ecosystem to kind of like consider, like attention comes first. Attention seems kind of like as kind of like maybe one of the main things, and then I think I'm on a panel later today related to kind of like the future of Handshake governance and these types of things, and I really think attention could be like one of those places where we kind of consider. But yeah, I mean, so just to kind of open things up for everybody else, is this the first HandyCon for anybody for anybody in the audience today or in the chat today, or is it their second or third? And actually, how many HandyCons have there been? I think this is maybe the 4th or 5th one. Yeah. So for the people where it was their, so people are saying this is the 5th one. And so that's really cool. And shout outs to Anne and Michael for keeping this going and during this event. I think it's one of the kind of premier events for Handshake every year. And but for the people who this is their first, I think I saw one person on here that said it was their first. Helga and Baston. How did you guys find out about Handshake, and when did you guys hear about it, and where did you kind of like find out about Handshake? I'm just kind of personally curious. A Twitter post from NFT people. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I do think NFT. I mean, all domains, even all these TLDs are essentially kind of NFTs, and so I do think there's a huge intersection with NFTs. And Basin on says he's been around for a while, and this is the first time, or he's been able, I guess, schedule coinciding with this event. And Telegram group helps a lot. Okay, Namecheap, that's pretty cool. Okay, and bought an UD domain first. Yeah, I mean, I do think UD overall, like UD may be like a good example. I think they've been decent at when it comes to generating attention. I think kind of some of the issues are the tech part of things are a little bit weak, or maybe it's just the design of how they created it. But I do see a lot of people that get into Handshake after like seeing something about UD first, and I guess like one of the things that Handshake community could do better is getting like the same level of attention or or as UD does, or figuring out how they're getting attention and kind of mimicking those types of things. Yeah, same UD for publicity. Yeah, I do see a lot of people getting into Handshake with UD first. Yeah, so that may be strategically like something to consider, converting all the pissed off UD users, UD buyers, and telling them there's actually a more decentralized, censorship resistant kind of alternative to this, for sure. Well, cool. Yeah, I mean, do you guys have any kind of general any other questions? I didn't have much of a presentation to I didn't have like a whole presentation or anything or too many updates on my side of things this year. We'd love to just kind of be present and see if you guys have any questions. Where are the other founders? I mean, yeah, they're around. They're kind of working. A lot of them are working on Warp. I'm helping them work on Warp as well, which is kind of like a decentralized exchange that has I guess the key difference again compared to other decentralized exchanges is is that there's a limit order book on the exchange. The thesis behind Warp really is that decentralized exchanges, I think, are like one of the coolest use cases built on smart contract platforms overall. And it's something Bitcoin like doesn't have. If there's any kind of case that you could make for any Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos, any of these other smart contract platforms, is that they can do permissionless exchanges between all these crypto assets. But they rely on this kind of mechanism called AMM, automated market maker, and that mechanism basically is somewhat of a hacky mechanism to provide this type of capability. It requires people to add liquidity to these AMM pools, and I mean, there's a lot of inefficiency there. First, you tie up a lot of capital to add these liquidity, but two, when you start thinking about the incentives for people to add liquidity to these AMM pools, it seems there's like impermanent loss, and there's kind of issues related to doing that. I mean, there's a reason you don't see this in traditional markets, right? When you basically you don't see like when you want to trade Apple on NASDAQ, you don't see people having to like deposit $1 million in USDC and $1 million in Apple stock in order to trade it. They just have an order book. And yeah, I mean, I think the more you look into like how AMMs work, there are like lots of little like issues with that, and not just on the efficiency front, but like in the ways that work. So Warp is an idea to kind of build on-chain limit order books on these smart contract platforms. We also have some bridging ideas so that you could bridge like non-EVM token assets such as like Bitcoin or Handshake onto it in a decentralized way. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty tough CS problem. It's a big technical kind of problem that we're trying to solve on Warp. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it is. Mario asked a question related to why are most founders and seed investors so silent about Handshake. So on the founder side of things, and again, I can't speak for everybody. I can't speak for all the founders related on the project, but in general, like our idea for launching Handshake was very much mimicking kind of basically following the footsteps of Satoshi and the way he launched Bitcoin. You don't see Satoshi wasn't active for too many years past, maybe like a year or something after Bitcoin launched, and mostly just on forums or via email or mailing posts and email. And we wanted to do something kind of similar, right? Whenever you do have founders that stick around, they become kind of like a centralized point for attention, and that can be good or bad. It's a double-edged sword. One, founders do like gravitate more attention to themselves when they talk about a project, and so they can kind of direct and harness that attention and energy into different places, and kind of furthering the network the way like Vitalik does, for example, with Ethereum. But then on the flip side of things, it becomes like a centralized point, right? And then what happens if the founder doesn't want to do that anymore, and the ecosystem's kind of dependent on it, or gets hit by a bus, or lots of different like situations like that. And so the way we designed and thought about like kind of launching Handshake was that it would be like way more following the footsteps of Satoshi, rather than like a lot of these more modern kind of platforms. And then the other part of it is, a lot of these like Ethereum, if you look at like Vitalik, he has this like really long roadmap that he's trying to still execute. Even like 11 years after they launched, or 11 years after they did the ICO. Whereas we shipped Handshake basically feature complete, right? We didn't build the apps or like anything like that on top, but in terms of like everything related to like purchasing a TLD, in terms of like DNS implementation, the proof of work, like every aspect of what we've kind of described that we would ship on Handshake, we've done. And so there was really no need for us to kind of like stick around and continue doing something, when like basically our job was kind of complete, which is also like more in the style of like Satoshi than anything else. And then that Dot asked the other founders. I think I've addressed anything else. Price predictions? No, I don't have any price predictions. Like JJ popped up JJ came by, I think the last few years, and I think he's just heads down working on things right now. But yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, thanks you guys so much for being part of this, Alex.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Andrew. We're gonna be chatting a little bit more later today. It's always awesome to hang out with you and get your insights. Please, we'll see Andrew in a little bit, so we can always ask a few more questions. But I think if we want to stay on schedule for the time being, we are going to have
This event wouldn't be possible without our amazing sponsors. Our bronze sponsors, D-Web Foundation, .x, our community sponsors, Handshake Australia, Namebase, Decentralizers, HNS.market. Thank you for your support in building a decentralized future.